Welcome to Hochoka Podcast.
Hello, Mitakiepi, and welcome to Hochoka, here at the center of St. Joseph's Indian Schools campus. I'm Scott Wooster, today's Hochoka host. We're glad you have joined our circle to hear from Father Tom Cassidy. Father Tom is visiting us here at St. Joe's and is taping a couple of podcasts to share with listeners. Today, we'll visit about Father Leo John DeHone and the charism that sparked the opening of St. Joseph's Indian School and continues to inspire the mission-driven work that's done here. Father Tom, thanks for being here again.
Thank you.
So I want to pretend that you have the honor of introducing Father DeHone, and you're given a 3-minute time limit. What would that sound like to the folks out there who don't know him already?
Father DeHone was a French priest who founded the Priest of the Sacred Heart in 1878. He had been a diocesan priest for a number of years, but always had the yearning to become a religious, and he eventually decided he was going to found his own community, which we are today, the Priest of the Sacred Heart. If I would try to summarize his charism and our vision, it's that God loves us. And we, in turn, are to show that love by how we treat one another. He, from very early on, even while he was a diocesan priest, he saw the problems of youth, and he saw the problems of workers. This was the Industrial Revolution, and the treatment of workers all around the world was left much to be desired. So he worked with them and worked with students. He put priests in factories to work with the people. He was very conscious of the social ills of the day, and instead of sitting around trying to do something about it. We use an expression that he wouldn't maybe quite put it this way, but it sort of emphasizes his life and how he approached things. See, judge, act. And he's obviously did that both with the workers and with students, and I think instilled that within our charism. Yeah. No matter where you go out in the world, we're in 41 countries now. You'll find in many places we end up working with the many difficult groups where other people are unwilling to go. According to Father DeHone, we should be willing to go, and we certainly try to carry that out. And I kind of think that's one reason why when the Germans came over here to raise money, which they really were coming over to because of World War I, and what had happened to their economy, of all things, they ended up here in South Dakota, and working with the Native American community. And I like to say, stop and think. There were many Indians at that time, or Native Americans, who were around at Wounded Knee, etc. This was after World War I, and the Germans had just lost the war, to the Allies. In a sense, there was somewhat of a bond there, right. I might say, that I've always been fascinated with.
Right. Yeah, I had never considered that either, but that's an interesting point for sure. And personally, how did you get into what you do? How did you begin to follow Father DeHone? What made you decide to get into all this?
Well, God works in mysterious ways. It's a good way to, I think, look at many things. And in my case, I went to a Catholic high school, but I didn't take Latin. I took Spanish. So this was 1960. The church was still in Latin. So I saw this ad in the Sunday Visitor for a school for adult vocations. I was 17. School for adult vocations to learn Latin. I was a professor in Milwaukee. The school was in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. And I said, well, I'll go there. And that was the Priest of the Sacred Heart. It was my introduction to the community. I liked the charism of the community. I liked the people I met. And the rest is history,
Right.
I mean, no real rhyme or reason why other than I needed Latin, but that brought me to the Priest of the Sacred Heart. And as I like to say, I've never looked back, and have I been blessed with all the things I've been able to do.
Absolutely. And you went to high school. You grew up in Milwaukee.
Right. I went to Pius XI High School, Catholic High School, Milwaukee.
And then went to
Branton, Massachusetts.
in Massachusetts to receive your education.
To learn Latin, basically.
To learn Latin, okay.
Yeah.
And then were sent back to Milwaukee to be part of...
Well, a little more places.
It wasn't that
other
quite
stops
that easy,
along the way. But eventually, I was ordained in '71. I was principal for minor seminary when I basically was called to come out here.
Okay, yeah. But I assume that when you were a young man in Milwaukee, you weren't aware of the SCJs and...
The SCJs were in Milwaukee,
Yeah.
in the south side. I was a North Sider. I had no idea who they were.
Right.
First of all, my parish was run by the Salvatorians. The high school was run by the Palatines.
Yeah.
Why didn't I join them?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
God put me in this direction, and I thank God every day for it.
Yeah, there was no light bulb when you were 10 that said, I'm going to be an SCJ someday.
No.
Yeah. Circuitous route.
Not until after the Sunday Visitor.
Okay,
showed me that ad.
Yeah, that's great. So let's say it's 1923, and you mentioned the Germans being here. Hogeba was a part of that. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
What is it in that particular Dahonium charism that draws you into the work that you undertake that becomes St. Joe's Indian School? And I'm having you speak for Father Hogeba.
Well, again, it's the ideal of the founder that we should go where things are difficult, where other people cannot or will not go. That, and you look at Father Holgebach and the other Germans. They were here struggling to establish themselves. In a sense, they have the same issue that any immigrant group has. They have to learn a new language. The customs of the country are not the same as what they're used to. So, the struggle they had to go through to adapt to this new life. And of course, they were Germans. My mother was German. Says I could say it. We're hard-headed. Maybe that's not the right word. And maybe stubborn isn't the right word, but they certainly will give it their all. And I certainly, our founders who came here gave it their all.
Right.
Those were not easy years. I know Father Perky was an American who came here in the 30s. He talks about the Depression, the Dust Bowl, and all that they all went through that here. They were difficult times, very difficult times. Father Perky says he was given a car and they was told that's all we can give you. His first Sunday collection was 17 cents. That's what he had to live on.
Wow.
So those were difficult days.
Yeah, those were difficult days.
And we've certainly been blessed because of their hard work, and they're willing to stick it out.
Yeah, we stand on shoulders for sure. What do you think makes the work that he was doing, that Father Hogeba was doing at that time, different than maybe some of the other missionaries in the state that were doing work or in Indian country at that time? Is there something that sets it apart?
I think maybe, again, part of our charism is, how would I put this? We're known for hospitality, and I think hospitality is built on my accepting you for who you are, and I think that's not who I want you to be, but for who you are, and I think our German founders built their life off of that to see the people for where they're at, not where the ideal says they should be,
right,
but accept people for who they are and work with them. No matter what limitations they bring, no matter what difficulties they bring, So I guess the best way I can put it.
Right. And you mentioned the hardships that they went through, especially early on. Fire, that took out most of the school, and Dust Bowl, of course, blizzards, droughts that are still difficult to deal with, but they were much more difficult during those times, and barely making ends meet, those kinds of things. And like you said, I think we've become a strong organization now in a lot of ways. In the spirit of Father Dahon, though, what do you think it was that helped the men and women who did serve here, and what animates that mission today?
Again, I don't know how goes about. But I'll use the example of hospitality again. It's considered part of our charism. I took no classes in hospitality. I was not taught what to do, but somehow or other we do it. I was a rector of our School of Theology in Hales Corners. We would have bishops come and saying, they all marveled at the hospitality that everyone showed them. And again, we didn't teach the students, this is hospitality, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. It just seemed to be, it rubbed off. And I kind of think that's what happens at a place like this. There may be very few SCJs here, but in a sense, this is still very much an SCJ institution.
Right.
With the charism that we come with, which is basically God loves you, and what are you going to do with that love?
Yeah.
And I think it's exemplified in how life is here for both the students and the staff.
Right. You drew a similarity between the Lakota culture and maybe the German culture back as far as just after World War I. And I, as I hear you talking, I think about this with the Lakota culture as well. They're known for generosity and making you feel at home. If I show up at somebody's house on the reservation, chances are there could be a meal, there could be coffee, those types of things. My wife is Sichangu, and if somebody's coming to the house, there's going to be food ready for them. They're going to be welcome. There's never a time where people are turned away. And I come from more of a background where there's some more strict boundaries, where, hey, we have to protect this time or that type of thing. And there's none of that with her. And I think a lot of that draws on her culture where you are saying, it's okay, come to me, I'm going to help you out. So that's kind of what I hear you saying with that generosity, hospitality of the SCJs or Hogabah or what we're trying to do here.
I think that I would concur. I think you're spot on.
Yeah. I'm going to ask a question about. We talked a little bit off camera about audiobooks or podcasts like we're doing here, and you told me that you are an avid podcast listener. You do it while you walk, or you do it while you fall asleep, that kind of thing. So gather a lot of information in that way. Is there something, are there particular podcasts that you might recommend to our audience? Or we were talking about the spirit that inspires us too, and I wonder if there's anything in particular you'd offer or reasons why you like that, if you'd just talk about that for a minute.
I'll give you the reasons first. I do like to exercise, I do like to walk, but walking by itself can be rather boring. I always thank God for Steve Jobs and the iPod originally, now the iPhone.
Bringing it to us,
Bringing it to us. And, it's a way of combining two things, learning or just enjoyment and exercise. Yeah. As I think I mentioned, I probably go between 40 and 50 books a year because of the amount of exercise I do. In that case, it tends to be more books than podcasts. But usually when I go to bed at night, I start listening to a podcast. You don't necessarily always finish the podcast, but at least I begin listening to it. One I would recommend, or I've got fallen into, there's one called, I'm not going to get the name right, but it's but the Bible in a year. It takes about 20 minutes a day, and over the course of the year, you go through the entire Bible. And I've learned to enjoy that one, look forward to it each day. And you can certainly find very spiritual podcasts. You can find very educational ones. There's just the variety is almost limitless. And what I like too is you can get them from all over the world. Right now, I'm kind of falling into BBC history podcasts. Okay, which I've enjoyed very much.
Yeah, excellent. So this is my first time meeting you today, and I hope it's not our last time that we get to cross each other's paths. I want to thank you definitely for being here in Ho-Chokeh today, but I also want to thank you. We talked about standing on the shoulders of the folks that came before us, and you're one of those people. So I want to speak on behalf of myself, certainly, and thank you for the work that you did, but I also want to speak on behalf of my coworkers, the folks who are here today, and on behalf of the kids and their families. You made a difference here, and we get to reap the benefits of that and continue that. Hopefully we can continue your legacy here.
Thank you. I look back on my time at St. Joe's with great fondness. It was a wonderful experience for me, and also very much a learning experience. I like to say the kids taught me more than I taught them.
Right. Wopila to you.
Thank you.
And we thank you, viewers, again for joining us here in Hochoka at the center of St. Joseph's Indian Schools campus, where we talk about issues central to Native American education today. Until next time, stay centered.